Hey. So I think everything's set up. Super excited to hang out with you again. Yesterday was awesome. I had a really good time. I always forget how much I really enjoyed.
So I think everything's set up.
Super excited to hang out with you again. Working alone kind of sucks. Yesterday was awesome. I had a really good time. I always forget how much I really enjoyed.
So I think everything's set up.
Super excited to hang out with you again. Working alone kind of sucks. Yesterday was awesome. I had a really good time. I always forget how much I really enjoyed.
So I think everything's set up.
Super excited to hang out with you again. Yesterday was awesome. I had a really good time. Yesterday was awesome. I had a really good time. I always forget how much I really enjoyed. That was probably chaos for a little bit. Sorry about that. So anyway, today I just thought it'd be fun to kind of continue what we were doing yesterday. And I don't know. Yeah. So that's kind of it. So let me jump back over here. Sorry, I'm a little flustered because I just started, how all that stuff goes. So yesterday what we did was I was working on let's see, can you see the code? Okay, yeah. So yesterday I was working on some course material for talking about modules for React developers. And so what we started with was we went to MDN. Oops, I got to take this out of full screen. Developer.mozilla. Went to MDN and we just kind of looked for import and export. Now, export is actually kind of the more interesting of these two because there's a lot more that you can do with export than you can with import. So we just kind of did that and we found some examples. Now, my goal for all of this is to make some type of course. And I think I've already decided that I'm going to break it up into two main sections. There's going to be the first one, which is going to be the module basics, which is just going to be import, export, named export, renaming, and then probably kind of module objects, which is not going to be on this export page, but yeah, module objects. So I think that's going to be kind of the limit of what we'll do. And then in the second one, we're going to do stuff kind of this more aggregated module stuff, which I think is helpful for people who are making libraries and whatnot. And I think also we'll talk about dynamic imports. So that's another thing that's going to be on the import side. But dynamic imports, one interesting thing about dynamic imports in React is that it kind of mandates, at least right now, dynamic imports and using those are going to mandate how you, let me put my face on. Yeah. Dynamic imports are going to mandate how you write your React components. So anyway, there's that. So let's jump back into our code or example right here. And let's start kind of codifying some of these ideas up. So the course will eventually... And I just write a lot of comments and then eventually kind of formalize it into something. Let's make this this kind of comment. Multi-line comment. Is that what it's called? Multi-line comment? Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna focus on is just import default, import, export with default. Okay, so this is just going to be that kind of standard one component per file type of thing. Now, I do think that maybe the next best step for that is to talk about private components. Because this is something I think a lot of React developers don't necessarily get is that just because you have one exported default component per file doesn't mean that you can't also have other components in there that are not exported. And I think this is a challenge for people because there's not a notion of public and private in terms of keywords. So a lot of other languages have a keyword for this is public, this is private, and therefore protected. JavaScript imports and exports, they don't really have that. And so everything is private until exported. So I think that's an important notion because a lot of people under extract on the component, the exported component side. So let's see. I'm going to just make a note to myself. So unexported is effectively private. So that'll be the lesson there. And I think I am going to stick to components for the first part of this. And then in the advanced one, talk more about what is it? Exporting functions and all that. Because that kind of gets into like injection and all that wild stuff. My goal for this is, I don't know, I want to say about like 20-ish minutes of like video content, which will be augmented by like maybe some, written content or exercises that someone would do to kind of progress them towards the next step. So there's that. So we have import, export with default. Then we're going to take some private components, and we're going to make those named exports. So we'll take those private, so these will be named exports. I want to kind of add some like code examples for these. So this is going to be import. Let's call this to-do list. Okay, so to-do list, and then we'll call this, I don't know, we'll put question mark and question mark in there. But that's kind of the syntax that we're going to go for, is that we want to export the default, but then also export the kind of included named modules there. So let's see, the example for this. See, so the example for this one is just going to be pretty simple. Whoops. For both of these is just going to be a pretty simple import with a default statement. My kids are arguing in the background, so you might have the delight of hearing them just bicker with each other right now. Okay, so we got that. Then the next step. So what was the next step thing that we came up against? So we don't have this import star as thing. One of the things that I want to get to in the end is a recommendation of mine, which is to use the star as. Will, what's up? Good to see you, my man. So a recommendation of mine is to use the like kind of star or what do we call this? Module object. Let me make sure that I got that right. I always mess up the name of this thing. Import. I'm really curious about this meta thing. Sorry, I'm like just going crazy for a second. Meta. This is really interesting. I might like to explore that in the kind of next steps. So that meta property, I'm just going to add a little, nope, didn't copy and paste. There we go. Actually, let's get to paste that for later, so I know that's something that I want to explore. Okay, so we want to get to this module objects thing. Let me see if they... Default import, dynamic imports, star as... Okay, so they call it import an entire module's contents. This inserts my module into the current scope. Okay. Yeah, so this is... I thought there was like a term for this. I thought it was a module object, but maybe not. So this is effectively where I want to go with it, where I want to end this set of lessons, because I think that this is kind of a really nice way to work. And I think that the primary goal that I want to get people towards is, so you have something like this: import star as React. Okay, so now that's like a, from. So now that's like a module object, right? And then later on we can use was it react.use state, but then say that something else comes along that also has a use state. I mean, this is maybe let's use effect. Let's say something else also has a use effect that we want to use, and that is like my other module.use effect. Okay, so if I have React use effect and my other module.use effect, if I use this syntax, it's really clear. If I use this, it's really clear kind of like what it is that I am like which module is being used from what, versus like if I have the like I'm pulling out the named exports and I pull like use effect out of one. Now it's like kind of unclear, like if both modules have use effect, like which one you'd be using. So I personally really like this pattern of just kind of like doing the whole like pull all of this module into like a module object. Not everybody does, because there's going to be this kind of like weird thing where if you want to use the default, you have to do like my other module.default, which is kind of a, strange pattern. It particularly looks strange in, React. Not that this is bad. This is totally acceptable. But it does look a little bit strange. So, yes, I'm going to list this as the unwanted side effect. And I'm kind of like just thinking out loud as I'm like processing all of this stuff, because another option, kind of the counter effect, is like you can do two import statements. So you import my default, and then import star as, rest. I don't know. There's so much to think about with modules. So okay, I'm gonna move this over because I'm not really making tremendous use of it right now. Okay, so these are the end things that we want to get to. And I think that those will kind of like lead a little bit into like discussions of how we kind of do that like import thing that I've been calling it, which is so stupid. But I'm going to save that for kind of like our like next advanced course. So import, which is the export from syntax. You'll notice that this is all like extremely like free form, and actually, let me see if I can change the theme, because right now this one's not really serving us. Where's the light themes? That's a decently high contrast one for this part of it. Okay, so we have, I'm shooting for about like 5-ish lessons. We'll probably go a little bit more. Okay, so we got import, export with default. We have named exports. Again, we want to do some kind of like to-do list. I think that's going to be the, I think yesterday we landed on that being like a pretty good thing to like start extracting. So we'll start with a very minimal kind of like to-do list or something like that, maybe a chat app, something that has multiple components. And then we'll start extracting that into a module using these patterns in this order. So we have the named exports. So we'll do that. And after that, I want to introduce the concept of renaming. I'm just going to call that renaming imports right now. Now, this is probably going to have multiple lessons because there's two syntaxes that we need to actually wait. Renaming, this is really just renaming named imports. Yeah, because this is already, default's already aliasing. We don't have this import as for default. So I think renaming named properties. I think that's going to be good. So the example is going to be like, import to-do list, and then whatever kind of sub component we're going to have as, and then just kind of like leave the other one as is. Feel pretty good about that. Because I think what this does is it introduces the, so let's flesh this out a little bit. List item. So we'll say like list item as like li. We want to take it as that. I think this starts to introduce the problem that we're going to run into where now we have this kind of like globalized thing. And if we want to use another modules like li, well, that becomes a bit of a problem. So I think this is probably a good place to kind of have those conversations or kind of introduce the problem that we want to solve here. Okay, let's look at some of the other things that we wanted to cover. Okay, so those are in my other file. So I'm going to jump back over to MDN real quick. Go to export. Okay, so in this MDN article, they have a ton of stuff. I really like all of the breakdown of these examples that they have. One thing, I don't know if this, I'm kind of curious where this fits in. So let me zoom this page in. One thing that was a question to me is, actually, I guess this is on the import side. Let me jump back to the import root page. There's this notion of kind of like a global import right here, where you import something for its global effects. I'm not sure if that fits into this very well. It is something that a lot of React developers encounter right away, but it is kind of like integrated with Webpack in the way that they experience it. You know, primarily when I see this, it's for like something like importing CSS. So when you think of like create React app, it uses this syntax to import CSS. That wouldn't work in like a standard like browser environment. So there's a little bit of like impedance mismatch there. In which case I kind of feel like I would naturally put this in more like kind of like advanced stuff, because I think this advanced thing is going to be a little bit more like a catch-all. Like here you understand like the practical like day-to-day uses of modules for React code, and then these are going to be a little bit more kind of like tailorations of that stuff. So it'll be like importing stuff, importing global effects, kind of how to do certain things for libraries, so that like, import type of syntax. Again, I'm going to do like dynamic imports in here. Because usually dynamic imports is when you're getting into like code splitting. And in React, so I'm going to put code splitting. Again, this has like a kind of like a Webpack type of counterpart, at least in React. Code splitting, I'm going to grab a link to that. One of the things is that this does not, let me double check. Yeah, so React Lazy only supports default exports for right now. So again, there be dragons. So again, this is kind of like a more advanced kind of a tailoration. You have to know some things in order to actually like utilize this. So I think that's looking good so far. So so this is the export side. Okay, so we covered default. We have star as name. Yes, we get to that in the end. Module object. Star as. Maybe the import side is where module object. Yeah. Module object. Oh, okay, but they put it in quotes, so it's not an official term. It's like okay. So module object is a kind of a colloquialism. Okay, and so then we're gonna do imports. Now we're gonna do, let's see. Okay, so this brings up an interesting question, because I'm jumping directly to this state right here. And then I'm probably going to back into this state where we recompose everything kind of app side. So that's okay. So I'm trying to construct like a cogent lesson in like organizing these in a way that makes sense, or makes sense from an actual application development standpoint, and not just, here are the features. So renaming exports. And then we'll do like kind of, we'll go to, whoops. I oftentimes like just put a tilde in front of things that I don't think are just kind of thoughts and don't have any bearing on the eventual title. So this will be like just named export imports. And the example will look like that. And for this, the result will be that we recompose this in the app side. So I guess what we're working toward, what we're working through. Yeah, so this just kind of touch like the idea of like I don't know. Maybe this is too much kind of opinion, but I mean, I guess if you didn't want the opinion, you could just, spend 30 minutes and read this MDN article. Okay, cool. So we have that. And then we already touched on the renaming of things. So I think that's good. I'm curious, like, how valuable it is to, it is important to mention maybe multiple. No, we want to demonstrate both one import and multiple imports. Okay. It's looking good. What time are we at? Oh, 12:26. Doing good. Okay, so then we also get into, so we've covered most of these. This is cool. I didn't realize that this existed. And I think this is, so my previous attempt at this was down here. No, there is no import star as local object with named exports. However, it looks like there is. You can do this, which is to take the default and then also take the take star as named, which is cool. So let me add that. Import default and then star as rest. Okay, cool. So Okay. So that seems like a natural fit then. So after we, because I said that this was kind of like an undesirable side effect of this module object, quote, quote, module object style. And so then that could lead us finally into the, I don't know if there's a name for this. Let me zoom all the way out. So default I'm going to export again. I think I passed it. Rename multiple exports during, nope. As, interesting. It doesn't look like they cover that particular case in the code or in the, they don't enumerate on that. So let me just copy paste that. And then also I want to be sure that it works. I'm sure that it does, but let's be sure. So this will be default and module object. Again, quotes on that. So I don't continue to think that it is an official name for this thing. Import default export star as, okay, cool. Now we had some code here that was doing something at one point. And I'd like to try that again. So I'd like to, okay, so this module naming is terrible. If you if you watched yesterday, then you know that I acknowledged that, and it's the reason that we're going to kind of extracting a like to-do list type of component. So, but I'm going to stick with it because I don't want to futz around with it anything too much. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to do what I was trying to do yesterday. We're going to take the default, and then we're going to take these as the star. So star as so we'll just take that as the default. And then I'm going to add this back as a prefix to these guys down here. Guys, come on, code isn't gendered. These lines down here. Okay, and that works. Oh man, that's super cool. Okay. So while we can't do star as, so this is in my notes here. So there's no import star as plus named imports. Can't do it. However, we do have a import default, and then with a comma, we can do a star as a module object, which we've illustrated here. And let me save that. Let me open up the code in that module for the sake of anyone who didn't see it yesterday. We are exporting a single default, which you can only export one default, and that is the star as mixed default. And then to give this a little bit more character, I'm gonna do this. I'm going to use this to render out the other components. Okay, so we should be able to now see that this is rendering out all of them, but then also we can render them individually because we're using that kind of module object style. Now we could also have done this differently by not doing the module object and did the what's it called? The named imports for this. But I did want to illustrate this because I think that this is a really important thing to be able to see all that on one line, because we could have imported it twice to have this same effect, but being able to do it all in one line is really nice. And it definitely beats the alternative, which is to do this. Which also works. So like these are effectively equivalent. I mean, I don't know what the kind of like what is it, the code scrubbing or like whatever happens, tree shaking. I don't know how this like does differs in tree shaking, whatever, but in terms of the outcome is going to be identical between these two, which is cool. Okay, so that is definitely going to be the last step before we get into kind of the official or get into the more advanced topics that are going to be more tailored, I guess. Tailored to kind of certain patterns that you're going to be using, whether that be in application development or in kind of library development. So this is going to be import. This I don't know about. I mean, it looks super cool, but dynamic imports with code splitting. Let me add. Oops. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? React.lazy, etc. Okay, so we have. So was there anything else that I wanted to? I want to make sure that I'm leaving enough content for like a more advanced course. And again, my goal is to have it be about each of these to be about 20 minutes ish. I want it to be really easy to kind of like dive in see what everything's about. So yeah, I think that's good. I think we're gonna do kind of what's this called? Import with global effects or something. Side effects only. Import side effects only. That's gonna be part of that advanced one. Okay, I think that's shaping up. Let me just double check. So I think we got everything on the imports side. Yep. And then what about on the export side? Was there anything else that we had wanted to include? Default exports. Aggregated modules. That's kind of the key. I'm calling them imports for fun, but aggregated modules is the key there. Yeah, we'll get into all of these. That'll probably be a couple lessons right there. That import thing is going to have whatever it is, like default is going to be part of that. As is going to be a big part of that. I think we're going to focus a lot on this kind of this export from syntax. Yeah, there's a lot to cover there. Okay, cool. Yeah, and like for me, I find that a lot of times I tend to go in this pattern of like I want to have something that's like super a handful of lessons that are super clear, built on some like kind of like common like regular use case, and then like a follow-up that is a little bit more like piecemeal. Like you have a lesson on this, you have a lesson on that. Like it's not really all like tied together, but if you kind of know the general structure, these are really more like problem solving techniques or like advanced tailorings of things that you would want to do in an app. So I'm feeling pretty good about that delineation, especially since this is going to take up several lessons. So how many do we have? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, cool. So I said 5-ish. I think that this is a pretty good lineup for yeah, 6 is great. And then I always estimate about 3 to 5 minutes of video. So this will be less than a half an hour for sure. These early ones are going to be smaller, which will push that down. Okay, cool. That is, I think that's good. I have about 20 minutes left. So I might just start building. When did my voice get so high? I'm like trying to hype myself up with a high voice or something. I may try to, I'm going to. I'm going to take the rest of this time right now, and I will start fleshing this out a little bit more. So you can watch me do that. I'm going to kind of reveal a secret, which is I like to start from the end. I always like to start from the end, just because, a lot of times you have an idea of where you will go, and it takes more steps to get there. And I find that starting from the end, you can kind of like the steps become clearer as you start to peel them out. So I'm going to change back to the color theme that I prefer. Now that we're going to be jumping a little bit more into the code side of things. So we've actually, I think we've actually done this for the most part, is that we've created the most complex scenario that we're going to get into, which is this. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm realizing that there's not a lot of reason why I would want to, like, why this is valuable right now. And I think the reason that this would be valuable is if you have two discrete but similar modules. So if this is, let's go with the list example for right now. Okay, and I know this is I'm gonna work from the abstract terms until I come up with something that's a little bit more like a better concrete example. But let's call this first list. So, and first being more in kind of the concept of like when it was developed in time in the life of this project. So first list, this module was made first in history. Getting a lot of alerts. It's hard to ignore them, especially when I'm so conditioned to not ignore them. Let's see. Let me make sure everything's still good. Yeah. Okay, so import first is so then import star as first list from first list. Okay, cool. So, and then I'm going to just delete all of this. Okay, so none of that exists, so we're going to make it, but I want to kind of show what it would be used like first. So some of the extremes are going to be, first list default. That'll be like our fully pre-composed first list. Now, okay, I'm just going to go for it. So first list. Now, usually the way that I write these components, I'm just going to go nuts. First, I'm going to pretend like I'm not even trying to have any value in this, in distributing this thought process here. Okay, so another possible example would be that we have like a first list container, and this could be something like a whoops. This could be something like a tailored UL. Or let's call this a styled UL. But then also with the benefit of being able to kind of do other stuff too. Like as OL, if we had an ordered list, if we wanted to. Actually, let's go really nuts. What was it? Description list, definition list, a D something list. Okay, cool. So we're gonna have that. We'll also have this first list, which is going to return a fragment with some type of render item, delegate, render item, let's see. So this will be, we'll pass in the list. And for this, we're going to take an item, and what we'll return is another thing that we'll get off of our module, which is first item dot list item. And then that'll use the children. And we'll do something like item.value and key will be item.id. Okay, now I can't use this. Let's see. Whoops. Oh man. Vim failed me. Refresh. Sometimes these plugins just kind of give up the ghost in the browser. I was probably trying to like actually resolve the pseudocode that I was writing. Let's see. We're gonna let our mock data again. I want to use that first. So mock data. We'll have ID of 1. This is super clever. Okay, let's see. So that is doesn't like what unexpected token. If you see what I'm doing wrong, let me know, because I don't know what I'm doing wrong there. Let mock data equal array literal, an object literal. Oh, duh. There we go. Okay. Okay, cool. So this is like our first module here. So I'm going to take all these. These are going to be a reference for my implementation. Okay, let's jump back into this implementation file, or I guess create an implementation file. Let's see, we have this as first list. So new file, first list.js, boop be doop. That was weird. Okay, so at the top of the file, we have to import React star as React from React. And then here, we're going to export default first list. We'll just inline this, export default function first list. And this is going to use our, actually, it's just going to do this, except without some of the customizations. Yes, yes. I guess this is going to take data. Chris Kittenbach, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I am indeed chantastic. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. I hope this is in some way valuable. I have a goal for 2021 to just kind of think less about the export and kind of demonstrate a little bit more of the process that goes into, creating some of this stuff. So Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe this is super boring, but at the same time, maybe there's stuff that's valuable in there, that gets lost in the kind of, really short, tailored, like 3-minute videos. But yeah, the goal is like really tight, kind of concise content eventually. It takes a few steps to get there, doesn't it? Okay, cool. So our first list, this is gonna have to take something like I'm just gonna take data for now, and pass that. Shoot. Okay, let's do nothing for now, and because we only have about 9 minutes before my lunch break is over, and I got to get back to work. singlespa.js.org. I'm going to check that out real quick. singlespa.js.org. Oh, okay. JavaScript router for front-end microservices. Oh, that's cool. So you can kind of like route between, I'm assuming, let's see, framework free. Oh yeah. So it'd be like something that sits between, micro front ends, something that sits between, like if you have like, a Vue app and a React app and like whatever, and you want to kind of like navigate between both of them. That's neat. Yeah, let me know how it goes. I'd love to know. Yeah, we're just hanging out in Discord. We love this kind of stuff. If you want to hang out there. Okay, let's see. Let's just get this going. I got 8 minutes. I'd like to have the module part of this thing working, even if the examples aren't right. The module part of this working. So let me just kind of mock this out with divs for right now. The container. Let's see. Let's jump back over here. I'm gonna comment this out. Oops, this needs to be use property access first. Sorry, I have some errors just in my mocked out stuff. First list item. Okay. Take that. We're just going to go with first default right now, and then we'll flesh out the rest. Now we're going to create these, but we're not going to export them yet. So function. Now this is going to change a little bit because we're going to be accessing them directly because they're in scope. So this will just be container and list. Container. Oh, no, this is going to be owner list. And it's going to take all of its props and spread them out so that we can capture children without having to take them. So we're getting all the rest props. And then I did that this way instead of just taking props because I'm also going to take an as. And then I know I'm going to do this because of the way that I kind of coded up the demo is take an as, set that default to UL, take it as an uppercase to trick JSX, and do that. So we'll return, so that doesn't need parens. What does it hate about this? Unexpected token. Oop. There we go. Okay, so now it's just complaining about list. That's great. We can, instead of doing all of that again, we'll just do list as. This will be a list item by default. Oh, except no. This is going to be React fragment, and it's going to take, because we're also going to have a list item. So many things. Let's actually back out of this real quick. yeah, this is going to be a React fragment. And with property access. Perfect. Okay, so it's rendering nothing, but it's not rendering an error. That's great. And then this is going to go one further. And this is like kind of way over the top. But, you know, again, I wanted to find like an extreme case that we could work from. List item. Let's see. 2. Chris says, WTF, I've never seen that as syntax. Yeah, this is, you know, it's so funny. Like, this is like basically my standard signature for any component that I write. And I'm amazed. It's like, people are always surprised by this. I did do, Chris, if you're interested, I don't know if you went through this, but if not, I had this thing, it was like whoops. Is that the right place? Oh my gosh. It was like this weird, like, cache thing. I did do a email sequence. It's 25 days. It was like for Christmas, but you can kind of jump in at any point and get the full 25-day sequence at react.holiday. And yeah, so I covered that particular thing, I don't know, somewhere around like day 12 or something. But I go into every piece of that syntax and why it's awesome. Let's see. But yeah, like kind of like as a short code, we do the lowercase, so it has that as style. So we're taking that as prop, but then we're aliasing it to an uppercase, because if this was lowercase, JSX just kind of assumes anything that's lowercase is HTML. But there's a heuristic for anything uppercase it's going to do as a component. And then by default, we use the string for the UL, which is HTML. However, we can use any component that we want, and that's illustrated here by using a React fragment, which is kind of, you know, React's kind of wrapper component that just returns an array. So, yeah, so interesting stuff there. Not what we're focusing on right now, though. Did I come up with it? I mean, I didn't come up with it, I guess. I just kind of pieced them together. But yeah, it's all just, I mean, all this whole thing is all just kind of JavaScript. And then we're just kind of doing it to you know, trick the JSX heuristics. But yeah. Let's see. Okay, let me get this thing going again. We're gonna, one last time, racing against the clock. List item. We're gonna default this, whoops, to a li. Okay, cool. And then we have some CSS in there that's kind of messing that up. But this is effectively all that we, whoops. Okay, this is effectively more or less all we need in this component to kind of illustrate it as, like, you know, being a component. This list thing, I'm going to end up having to take, I'm going to want to take data. So that's the next thing that I need to flesh out. I'm going to add that as a to-do so I can remind myself of it. To-do data / enumeration stuff. In list. Okay, cool. Awesome. So we're getting there. It's all still kind of a mess, but there it is. I wonder if I could, just before we go, copy and paste this, take that. So we're already seeing it through the default export, but if we want to see it through the kind of, you know, module object, Let's see if we can copy and paste that and then redo it real quick. Chris, it's good to see you. Thanks for hanging out, man. And yeah, if you, hold on a second. If you're not in Discord already, oh shoot, I'm gonna get you a quick link. We're having a ton of fun in Discord. So, do this real quick. I guess I'm in streaming mode, so I could just show it. Invites. Create one. All right. Michael G, what's up? Hello. I'm just about to wrap up because my time is done, but it's always a pleasure to see you. So I'm just gonna make sure that all this works real quick. Just gotta get that one last. Just want to leave it in a good spot before we close. So this one's rendered by the default. However, we're getting all these errors because these things aren't we don't have access to them yet. Now, I could do named here, but I do want to keep, I want to test out this alias thing. So I'm going to add first, list dot to try this out in front of everything. And I'm just going to do one for now because time. Yeah, sorry, Michael. Let's see. Eventually, this is all going to be a course. So there's going to be a really nice, like, tidy course. This is all just kind of like making stuff for the course creation. So, yeah, just exporting that process a little bit more. So what is it complaining about? So we have first container list item. Maybe I'm not going to be able to wrap this up before lunch. Oh, duh, they're not exported. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is exactly, look at that. Hey, okay, cool. So what we ended up with is kind of the final state, or near the final state of whatever this kind of illustration is going to land on, which is this kind of like mixed default export with a named with a like module object. So taking all of the contents as this object, and the value for that is just being able to use this as a component, but then also being able to use all of its individual parts to recompose everything together in a different environment. So that is pretty cool. I think that's it for today. Let me see. Let's jump back to my face. Hey, how's it going? If you're here, thank you so much for hanging out today. Thank you for kind of like exploring this, modules for React developers stuff with me. The goal for this, as always, is going to be at, let's see, putting all this stuff on. I'm adding more content to the lunch.dev site. There's some stuff there already, but again, the thing that we're working on right now is this next course that's going to be for modules for React developers. So anyway, that's you got to see kind of like how the sausage is made. I'm going to continue fleshing this out. I don't know. I think I might have a meeting tomorrow, but who knows? If I don't, I'll try streaming then and taking this a little bit further. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for being here. And thanks for helping me out. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you again, doing some more of this kind of stuff. And yeah, if you're not already in Discord, click the link, hang out there. It's where all the good people hang out. Peace.